Hey everybody, it's your Sam again, and we are back in Campfire, and I am going to go over the Stygra race. Now, the Stygras are one of the races I created for I'm No Hero. So here's the front page, and we are going to go to the world building pack. Now, this costs a little bit extra whenever you purchase Campfire because this is not in the original Campfire, it is an add-on. So we're going to go to species, and as you can see, the first one is the Stygra. I do have a few things in here already, and I want to just flesh them out a little bit and to show you what's going on with them. So this is the name of the race, Stygra. They are the very first race of mortals for this world. They are the very first humanoids that were able to populate the earth. I haven't really gone into evolution or anything like that in my world just because it's not really going to be covered in the books, so I don't really see why I really need to delve into that much. All these races are basically created by gods, we'll say. The gods have changed over the years though, so the gods that are worshipped in I'm No Hero, the very first book, are not the same gods that created the world. Stygra, the statistics, their average lifespan is about 150 years. Their average height is about 5 feet, 5 to 5 feet to 5 feet and 5 inches. Their average weight is about 100 pounds. They are a little bit on the heavier side of the races. I'm going to up this to about 150 feet just because of their powers and their magics that they have to wield. It just makes sense that they would be a little bit heavier, that their bones will be a little bit thicker and not as frail as, say, regular human bones. Common locations, they're basically everywhere, but they prefer dark places, places that have longer night, places that have mines and caves, and also places that have a lot of deep water because that's where they get their powers from. Stygra wield powers that are water-based and earth-based, mostly earth-based. Growth stages I have right here. Birth is from 0 to 2 years old. They have kind of peach fuzz all over, dark in color, reminiscent of what their hair color will be. Their eyes do not open until about toddler stage, so they have a very long infantile stage. This is because they take a while to grow, to develop. They don't fully develop in the mother's womb, and I don't really want them to develop in an egg either, so we'll just leave it with this. Toddler stage is from 2 to 8 years. They start walking with the eyes open. The peach fuzz is gone. They start talking and drawing power for sustenance. Stygras come into their powers very, very early on, and it is a limited amount of power. It's not the power that they will have as soon as they mature. Then you get the child, which is from 8 to 12 years old. They're weaned from their power for sustenance. What I mean by this is they draw upon earth and water power in order to grow. It's kind of a feeding cycle. Yes, they still eat, but most of their growth and everything comes from swallowing power. They learn to use power for things other than growth and begin eating solid foods. Growth spurt to nearly adult height, and this is the first phase of their real power because they're not eating it all up and using it for the energy to run their body's processes. They're actually able to use it. Some at the toddler stage are what you might call geniuses. I haven't come up with a term for it just yet, but they are overly powerful. They can swallow more power than what they have to use. So they learn early on what they can do with their powers. It's very rare. Well, not very rare, but it's not very common. Teen ages are from 13 to 20, kind of like ours. The first magical phase is done. The second phase happens when they hit their puberty. They enter into their true power holding, make, and strength. With Stygra, their power holding is kind of what we call souls. They draw upon it. That's their power is their soul. The power make, I'll get into that a little bit, is skills and abilities over here. I'll get into it a little bit later. And their strength, of course, if they were kind of a genius to begin with, they're still going to be a genius type as they grow older, more than likely. Youngling is age 21 to 40. Their growth becomes much more slower now. They don't really change in height or weight or anything like that. They pretty much stay as they were when they hit like 21, 22. This is kind of like a young adult phase. They're trained by their elders or the family member with the same power, because their powers are usually passed down from generation to generation. Not very many people sway from a power. Adult is anywhere from 41 years to 90 years. They come into their life. They're settled now. They know their limitations. They know their powers very well. They have tasks to fulfill that is set to them by the community that they live in, and they use their powers for those tasks. So if, say, they have the power of healing, then the community that they live in look to them to heal. They become the community's doctor, the community's healer. At this stage, they may be making a family. Old age is anywhere from 91 years of age to 120. They're not quite considered elders at this stage, because council members can be pulled from this age pool if they show like promise or great power. The power is well settled. They don't pull too much or too little. The people that make it to this stage are not the foolhardy and stupid ones. They are the tried and true. They're steady, they're learned, and yeah. To become an elder, you're kind of around the age of 121 years until death. The elders always teach the younger generations. They live peacefully. They're kind of puttering around. They're telling stories and teaching all the time. They don't really do the tasks that the community sets for them anymore, because at this time they're passing on their knowledge to a future generation in order for their task to be taken up. So skills and abilities, here's some of the powers that a Stygra may have. We have puppeters. These they can take over a person just by movements and a few actions. They can't really speak for them unless the person is willing for them to speak for them. So it's not complete mind control, but it is kind of like a spinal column control. They control all the muscles and the nerves and the reactions and everything, and the mobility part of the brain. Most puppeters are watched very closely. If the council members or the elders or the old agers come across a puppeter who is abusing their power, then they are severely punished, just because, you know, Stygra are usually very peaceful people. Healers. Most Stygra are healers. This is a huge amount of the Stygra population are healers, and these powers do have a little bit of So for a puppeter, they always feel and see others and how they could improve that person's life. Say like a human is near them and the human drops an apple and the apple gets bruised. The Stygra picks up on that even though they may not be watching them closely, and they automatically want to puppet that human so that they can fix the problem of the bruised apple, or make them feel a little bit more confident about themselves, or something to that nature. These powers drive them to use the power. It's not really a choice that they have. They have to use it. It will drive them insane if they don't use it properly, and it will drive them insane if they use it too much. So yeah, healers, it's kind of self-explanatory what a healer is, but their downfall is that they always feel like they need to be healing something. They're always turned on. Some of them even turn to self-harming just so that they have something to heal. So yeah, that's one way that the power is as harmful as it is useful. The Unbreakables, they create like a shadow metal. That's the best term I can come up with. It's kind of threads that they can create, and they can make the threads like bond together to create like a post or a rope or something even thicker like a sword or something like that. The Unbreakables are literally just that. Those threads cannot be broken by anybody other than the user. So they either have to die or unmake it. Shadow handlers, this is a little self-explanatory as well. They can manipulate shadows. The downfall to shadow handlers is that there have been Stygra that get lost in the shadows. They kind of turn into phantoms or ghosts, never finding their way back into reality. Earthens, kind of like Toph from The Last Airbender, they can manipulate soil or dirt. Some of them can manipulate rocks as well. It takes a little bit more power to do anything with rock. Loose soil and dirt and everything, they can manipulate a little bit more. Power saps. Now, these are kind of another another iffy ones. They are kind of watched very closely as well because they can manipulate others. So power saps are the Stygra that can actually take power from others. And this isn't really limited to just Stygra that they can steal from. They can steal from Welkin and rogues, and well, humans don't really have any power, but they do have life force and drives and stuff like that, and Stygra can kind of feed off and take from that. Downfall of the power saps, so that they're not like all powerful, is that they can lose their own power. So say a certain power sap is around Welkins a lot and they start sapping power from Welkins. Welkins get their power from sunlight and from fire. Stygra do not. So if this Stygra keeps sapping power, it's ultimately going to eat the Stygra up from the inside out because they're holding power within them that is from something that damages their own power, damages their own soul. Power wells are kind of the opposite to power steps. They hold a lot of power. They're wells. Now, the Stygra that hold this power have the ability to hold a lot of power, and they are built to hold a lot of power because that's their gift. But even they can hold too much. They can burn themselves. They can damage themselves. It's kind of like drowning. If you get too much water in your lungs, you're going to die because you can't take in air. So if they hold too much power, they're going to die because they can't do anything else. They can't eat because they're full off of power. They can't drink because they're full off of power. And the only way that they can burn it off is if there's a power sap near them. But the only thing with that is power saps have to continuously feed off of the power wells. So power wells usually have a little bit of another talent, like a healing or an unbreakable. So they're continuously creating some kind of art with like the unbreakable threads or something like that in order to take up the power so that they don't burn themselves out on it. Truth seekers, they're kind of like mind readers. They can tell when somebody is telling the full truth, part truth, or lying through their teeth pretty much. They don't necessarily have to read the mind, but they can kind of see it in the words. They can kind of hear it in the words. They pick up on the little things like the tics that people may do when they're lying very easily. It's kind of like when you're reading and the author tells you that the sky is blue. These Stygra can read that not they just lied, the truth is this, and it's kind of presented to them in their mind as if they had just read the truth. Alright, Greenways, they are herbalists and they can help plants grow, or they can kill them. Either way. They usually do this through singing. Greenways usually have very silky, very nice voices. It's kind of like a summer wind through the leaves It's kind of rustly. It's comforting. It's warm. So a lot of times when they're out in gardens and everything, helping the gardens grow, farmers like to hire Greenways in order to make sure that their harvests are good. So they sing almost constantly. That's how they share their power with the plants around them. Their weaknesses are sunlight and fire and drawing too much. Sunlight and fire, of course, they're the opposite of darkness. And also, of course, drawing too much can burn them out. Their reproduction is mammalian. Females carry the offspring for about 6 months and hardly show any growth in the pocket until the 4th or 5th month. And that's because, as I said up here, toddlers or at birth, they still grow, they still form all their fingers and toes and the little things like ears and stuff like that whenever they're 0 to 2 years old, even into the toddler stage. Habitats, Stygra, again, like caves and self-made houses that are rather dark marshes, because marshes are overcast a lot. They have a really heavy canopy. There's water there too. There's a lot of land. And they also kind of like being by the sea. They don't really like sunny beaches. So that's a little bit about the Stygra race. Their description is still a little bit in the works. Their ears don't have flaps. They don't have, pieces of skin around them. They're just the holes in the head. Some Stygra, I think, are going to have small horns or small raised ridges on their head and shoulders, kind of like horns. And this is because, in caves, if you've ever went caving, there's a danger of hitting your head and stuff like that. So I do believe that the Stygra would eventually evolve into having those formations on their body to help protect themselves. They are very pale just because they like the darkness kind of thing, sun, it burns, and they usually have really dark black hair. Their eye color is either black or it's either white, depending on, their powers, where they live, and things like that. Because if you live in a deep cave and you hardly ever come up for sunlight, usually your eyes are going to be like a cream or a white or silver or something like that. Those that actually live on the surface will tend to have, brown, black eyes. And their eyes are going to be fairly large in their head. I'm thinking kind of like chibi. They have an innocent look about them. I hope that you enjoyed this little look into one of the races that I've created for my I'm No Hero series. And again, this race is Stygra. Next Sunday, I hope to delve a little bit into the rogues or the humans. We've already covered Welkins a little bit, but I will probably do another video on Welkins just to cover that race since, Tasp was a character and I was talking mostly about Tasp. Look forward to that. If you like videos like these, make sure to subscribe. If you like content like this, make sure to hit the like button. If you have any questions or anything like that, make sure to leave them in a comment. As always, keep writing, be kind to one another, and smile about something today. I'll see you next time.